Hello.
Hey, Alex. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys too.
Get the notes up. What is going on? Chrome, for some reason, my browser window is like rendering the minimize and expand window buttons over the tabs and not letting me click them. One sec. See if I can. That worked. Okay. Share screen. Okay, now we're in business. All right, so the first item on the agenda today is Alex had some questions about multi-doc parsing in queue control.
Yep. I created a document there. So I tried to follow the logic what kube control does for the multi-doc parsing. If you scroll down a bit on like in kube control in the heading. So I tried to like include links to all the things. I think like basically what it does is we have a file visitor which gets a path, and then it visits all the files in the path and checks if it's, or like it opens them, and then it opens a stream visitor which basically has a visit function. Now if you look at point 3 and then B, and then you click on the visit link, I think it should be that one. Yeah, so the comment says visit implements visitor of a stream. Stream visitor is able to distinct multiple resources in one stream. Now I'm not quite sure exactly at which point we register like multiple things. I mean, I guess it's this for loop and it checks if IO end of file is reached, but I'm not sure if that is also like if the YAML delimiter, like the 3 dashes, counts as an IO end of file, and then from that we get it into a raw extension and then we validate the schema. So I don't really, I'm kind of like missing some points here, I think, exactly how this stuff works.
So when you do a decode into the extension for that one pass of the loop, that should be a single document.
But doesn't it like scan till the end of the file?
So
Let's say
the error that's being returned there would be like the only thing coming back from decode. So if there's no error, then you're able to continue working on the raw extension until the next iteration of the loop. So
okay.
like this could be an empty stream, in which case the first thing that would happen is the end of file, which that should be, that's from the IO package, I believe. So that's regular Unix or OS specific end of file.
Yeah, so decode just decodes the next document into the raw extension. And if decode happens to get to the end of the entire stream, it will return io.eof, and then you're done.
But I mean, and like, how do we know that one end of a YAML document is reached? Like, if we have like one file with 3 basically documents, right? They're all delimited with like triple dashes. I don't see how this turns up here in this loop.
It's probably inside decode.
Is it?
That's where I would.
There's
your decoder is passed, I believe, into the visitor, and then the decoder interface, whatever is implementing that, is going to be responsible for the decode function on the byte stream.
Yeah, I mean, no, it just happens here. Like, you just get a new YAML or JSON decoder and use it
Oh,
on the.
I linked this function, I think
the reader interface from the visitor into the decoder, and then just use the decoder until they're through the entire stream.
Okay, so with decode, we have this logic implemented.
That seems so.
If you click, if you go back to my document, and then I link to the decode function. Yeah,
Look.
it's a bit cryptic, but for me at least.
yeah. When I read this, those guess functions really creeped me out for a second.
Oh yeah, that just is how it figures out whether it's JSON or YAML, right?
Yeah, except that YAML could start with a bracket and some space.
Yes, it could. Yeah, it's sort of silly because YAML is a superset of JSON. Like you can write JSON.
Yeah, it should be trying to heuristically guess YAML instead, but that would be a lot slower. So, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to like be able to upgrade halfway through your code.
I'd actually be really interested to see if, like you could create some decode bugs by intentionally malforming your YAML so that it starts with brackets. Yeah.
Okay, so in that bracket, I think down there we have this logic.
This is probably just.
That's every use of decode in
I was
Kubernetes.
looking for. Well, I guess I should just go steal this one. This is really nice. When did GitHub add this?
Yeah, that's a good feature.
A few days ago.
It's quite new, yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, you see the well, this is YAML to JSON, right?
Right.
Uh,
So this YAML readers, that's the one we want. So that's the reader. And that's this guy.
there we have separator, right?
Yeah. Where's this? Yeah. Oh, I can't click on that. Find this file though. Yep.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Oh, I've seen this before too, and this actually blows my mind because we're only supporting a subset of the YAML spec. So there's actually an end of document separator as well.
YAML
Yeah, so 3 dots is similar in behavior to this. But,
God, I hate YAML. I wish Toml was.
got YAML, and it's going to be simpler than YAML.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this goes through like the YAML reader. Wait, I'll just add a comment there, and then I can edit later.
You can also dedent a string and put a separator at the beginning of your YAML file that's part of a string. I'm not sure if this parser handles that. It would be really hard to code for in this manner without like a formal lexer.
Okay, so I guess we figured out how this decoding is done. My next question would be, with that in mind, is this something we could use? I mean, and technically we're using the YAML reader, right? So my question would be, how would we implement this in like parsing multi-documents for the component configs?
Yeah, it seems like you want the highest level interface available. Don't you think, Lee? You'd want.
Yeah, you would just want something that returns a collection of typed objects, probably. so Metafactory is like almost that, right? So the PR that Alex made, and that's from Kubernetes.
Does
And
QADM also relying on the same API machinery path?
I think Metafactory is from API Machinery.
Yeah. So maybe we're already reusing the same.
so the kubectl is just using a decoder. It's not even using a codec factory for this portion.
Is it just? I see.
And
I think
then
it's just doing, yeah.
yeah, and then it's not using a metafactory either. It's using this validate. Was it validate schema function that it made?
This one. It's.
Yeah, validates.
You're right. It's just going into a raw extension and then.
Where is validate schema from? That looks to be in the package.
I think I linked to that in my document. And then yeah, validate bytes and validate bytes. I wasn't quite sure where that was defined, but I could find one in kubectl/package util OpenAPI validation. I think I linked to it in my.
Well, we passed the extension to validate schema. What were the args before?
The content validator is a bit weird. Yeah, we passed the extension and the content validate schema and.
Yeah, where did that come from? From when we were in the visit function? Just like go back for a sec.
Go back to where?
Yeah, scroll down a little bit.
To visit, yeah.
Yeah, so validate schema, the schema is on the visitor.
Yeah. Schema is a content valid. I'm trying to figure out.
And it implements content validator. And then when this is like, it gets funky when you're like transforming the type of things through arguments. Yeah, so then in the validate bytes, it's calling validate bytes from the schema. So that's an implemented function or method, sorry. And the schema, is that just like a scheme?
No, schema is the content validator.
Oh, on the visitor. Where is that type?
That's what I was trying to find, but it's not in this file.
Yeah, the content validator.
Why does this file not have the cross references?
It only works half the time.
Did we pay for it? Is that why?
I used to use the source graph extension, and then when GitHub started implementing this, it like broke it.
Yeah, I used to use that too. That was kind of cool.
I'll power up Goland, and then I can traverse those better.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that I'm gonna not use VS Code anymore since like the Go PLS thing that they switched over to is not very good.
Oh really? I like Go Please. It's been working pretty well.
It's like not functioning for me in Kubernetes.
Interesting.
I have my Go path set up and everything, and
I have to mess with some config on it. I can't remember.
Yeah, if you have any special notes about getting VS Code to work well with Go Kubernetes, I would like to definitely see. I know that it hates like the staging directory. So I actually ignore the staging directory and I use the vendor directory instead because it's a bunch of symlinks.
Maybe it's just always gone to vendor for me and I just haven't worried about it.
So I think content validator, the interface is defined in API machinery / package runtime serialize or YAML.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's in CLI runtime. What?
I'm not sure where the implementation. To find the implementation is a bit odd. Like the only thing
You gotta look for validate bytes. That's the only thing to do.
I think it's in like, yeah. It's a bit odd. It's not in. Wait, where is it?
Yeah.
Whoever's, so it'd be in queue control then.
Yeah, that's in. If you go to the visitor. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. So is queue control been moved out yet?
They have a library called CLI runtime, I think.
Well, that was that one, but they were
No.
on CLI runtime too. So.
I think it's in package util OpenAPI validation.
What? I don't know why searching is putting this in. So they were moving CLI runtime stuff out of queue control, I think, which is why I was looking to see if there was anything like it.
No, that one I think.
I see in command package kubectl command util OpenAPI validation.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also package kubectl validation.
Yeah, I'm in the OpenAPI validation file right now.
Oh, they have a validate no duplicate keys function.
Oh, really? That's cute.
Yeah, they do. Wow, this is unexpected.
Yeah,
and kind of awkward.
All the things that we're trying to do. Well, yeah, we should just use their stuff if we can.
Yeah, we'll just make kubectl the standard.
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, like
It certainly is.
a lot of things, like I mean, it's CLI runtime. A lot of the things we're validating are just things that we pull in, from binaries that are invoked on the command line or via some shell script, right? Like,
What's kind of funny is I don't really see them using a lot of codec factory either.
Yeah, not at all, right?
And that library kind of is like not very good.
Yeah, but that's interesting. We should figure out what's going on with that too. Like what? Because I don't know how much queue control needs. Because queue control doesn't need to convert to internal types. It just needs to like send requests to the API server with the objects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was able to just avoid that.
Yeah, because codec factory, that's basically its main purpose is conversion and defaulting.
The API server definitely still uses codec factory.
So here in validate bytes, and this is the util OpenAPI lib. They're getting the object kind from some private function, and then yeah.
So they're just doing OpenAPI validation on it, is what it seems like. So they're maybe just doing really basic validation against the OpenAPI schema, which makes sense because it's queue control. It's not doing any like advanced, like they don't want to link against the validation libraries in the API server, right?
Yeah, I mean it needs to basically discover everything through the API server. It like depends on what API server you're talking to, like whether or not you should use objects.
Mm-hmm.
because even with a new version of kube control, you can talk to an old Kubernetes cluster, and vice versa, and it like mostly works.
All right. So, what would be the best way forward with that in mind?
I guess so. It's kind of funny, right? Because it's like they've assembled their own abstraction here, which has some nice things and some not nice things in it.
I mean, at the core, it's still using
our use case. I mean, we want to be able to still decode through Codec Factory, right? Because we want the conversion, we want the defaulting. That's part of that right now.
Yes.
And we want multi-doc support. So I think the Meta Factory did that, right?
The Meta Factory did multi-doc, and it would return you a collection of GVKs.
Oh.
If I remember correctly. Which that's like interesting. And I'm curious how it's being used in Kubedium. But it sounds more like a pre-flight check error, kind of like validation step.
Yeah, what I want is like a decoder that I hand a multi-doc YAML and I get back like a list of objects that were decoded.
Yes, and or a collection of errors.
Right, and then that can be used for like controller managers and stuff that have a bunch of different controls that really need them.
What do you want returned? Like a list of objects?
Yeah, I think that's the best thing. I don't know if it should be a list of runtime.object interfaces and you have to cast them, or if it should be.
So, yeah, what exactly, like, should the objects be tupled with their GVKs? Because, like, if you have the GVK...
Can you get that off runtime.object? Doesn't that include metadata?
Yes.
Right,
so you would go look at the metadata, match it against a case function. Like,
Now, object has get object kind and a deep copy object function.
yeah, great. So that would work. Oh, great, lots of files. Which file was that in?
I think interfaces.
Yeah, so we can pull that off.
yeah.
So we want a list of runtime.objects basically returned.
Yeah.
That sounds sensible. And then, yeah, you would have a case statement on, you would get object kind for each thing and then run it through a function that runs a case on it.
Does that give you? I guess you had have to assume that only the external types are registered with your scheme. Right, the kind doesn't give you a version or a group. Right?
Yeah, I mean, normally it's marked when it's GVK.
Right. So that's coming from scheme.
Isn't there a function? Wait, I just saw that.
Group versioner has an interface that.
I thought there was like a metadata accessor, like a generic metadata accessor or something like that.
Like the object typer interface has an object kinds method, which returns a list of group GVKs basically from that object.
Yeah. Well, we have to make sure that whatever types we're using, whatever scheme has the generated functions to implement object typer automatically, which I would hope it does. Interesting that this one returns GVKs and the other one, like they're named the same. But
Yeah, what is an object kind, actually? Can we look at that struct? It's like one of the hardest things to work with in Go is like, it's just impossible to get a list of things that implement.
Yeah.
There's tools for it, but yeah, not on GitHub.
Golang is pretty good with that. That's why I like it. You can jump to implementations and stuff. I think interfaces are.
On Slack. Oh, an object kind has the group version kind method on it, so we're fine either way. Okay. Sounds good.
So yeah, it's very elegant. You take your objects and then you get object kind and then you call group version kind on the object kind and then you can now.
Yep, and then you can box out to whatever you need. All right, that sounds good. Let's do something like that.
Okay.
And then document some examples in the component base repository.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do a prototype and see how it handles.
So in Codec Factory, can you just call decode multiple times even with all the abstractions?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Because it sounds like that wrapper would then go into like component base, like a multi-doc decode.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
And like returning it in a list is kind of, it's definitely the most generic thing you can do, but like.
I don't know if I want to try to do a map yet. We have to think about how to keep, like what to keep them on.
Yeah.
Sure, if we're trying to just do like a generic like multi-doc decoder, like I don't want to put the assumption that you're only going to have one of each type in that decoder, because that's an assumption that components may choose to enforce based on their config, but they may also not choose to do that. And so it shouldn't assume anything like there's a unique GVK. And so I think if you did a map, you'd have to have like a map of GVKs to list objects anyway, at which point it's maybe easier just to have a list.
With the prevalence of config maps and kind of reading through kubectl's approach where you can pass a directory and it has a file visitor that can do recursive descent and stuff like that, like should we be thinking about a config dir instead of just a config file?
Yeah, we talked about that a long time ago, of both things being supported.
Okay.
Yeah, Luke. I don't know if we talked about that in these meetings at all, but yeah, Lucas and Stefan and I talked about that like months ago when this was all getting started initially. And I think we need to do both.
At some point, we'll have both. I'm kind of more concerned about merging config first, but yeah.
Yeah, I think like multi-doc's the most important because people are going to want to put, like, it gives people a way to provide multiple config objects, and like it's nice to just configure one file against the thing, but then we can look at like, hey, here's your directory of config. It gets harder, like, because you got to make sure nobody's putting other stuff in the directory. But just thinking about the way most people leave their config files lying around in a rich place.
Yeah. Although I do think that like the most common practices that we have in software do not really like serve the complexity that most software demands from its config.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
All right, I think we're kind of out of time here.
yeah.
All right. So we will continue to look at the meta factory and find a way basically where we can give it multiple YAMLs and return the list of runtime object, right?
Yes,
was
but
the
we
idea?
want to use codec factory.
Codec factory for that.
Yeah, because codec factory wraps the serializers in something that can do conversion and defaulting. Which let me know if you need to chat about that more.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have a closer look at codec factory again. I haven't looked at that yet. So yeah.
Yeah, just wrapping up. We're just getting our AIs in order.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Then I took some notes in my doc, and then yeah, we'll catch up maybe next week. Although I'm on holiday next week, so probably the week after.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Y'all have a nice day.
All right, you too. Bye bye.